Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Planning and Zoning Board public hearing for Wednesday, July 20th. My name is Mike Clement. I am the chairman. This time I'd like to, as you can see, we're still scrambling a little bit here. Our study session went over. But I'd like to acknowledge, as new members of our board, 3 individuals, and we're excited to have them to be a part. So with us today we have returning members, Michelle Dahlke, who is also now vice chair as of yesterday, Dane, Astle, and Steve Ikeda. Our new members include Jessica Sarkissian, Jennifer Duff, and Tim Boyle. I'd like to invite each of you just to take a minute or two, just give a brief introduction as to who you are and your experience. Why don't we begin? Well, let's start over on that side, if you wouldn't mind, Tim, then Jessica, then Jennifer. You'd push the RTS.
Hi, I'm Tim Boyle. Grew up in Mesa. I lived in New York City for 10 years, right by the George Washington Bridge that Chris Christie closed. So now you know where. I ran across that every day when I was in New York. Moved back about 4 years ago. When I was in New York, I went to graduate school for architecture at Columbia and then subsequently became a professor there. I have a minor from ASU in urban planning and a major in architecture, and then a master's in architecture from Columbia. And I'm a scoutmaster. I took a group of scouts 100 miles from here to Payson. We hiked all the way on foot. So if you tick me off, I'm not afraid to lead a mass exodus out of the city, and I know how to do it.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay.
Jessica, go ahead.
My name is Jessica Sarkissian. I am graduated from the University of Arizona with a Bachelor of Geography and Regional Development, so go Cats. And I am a planner by trade, so I call myself a planning mutt. I've been on the public and private side. Most recently, I was on the Board of Adjustment for the City of Mesa, and I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you. Are you going to tell us you lead Girl Scouts too, and you've hiked even farther?
No. I kill rattlesnakes.
You kill rattlesnakes, okay.
I have had to do that.
So Jennifer, hopefully you can top that.
I could tell some stories, but I'm a native of Mesa. I currently live in downtown Mesa. In fact, I've moved in downtown Mesa since 2009 and became actively involved in a number of issues and a community activist. I've been just finished a term as board chair of the IDEA Museum. I'm a founding member of the Rail Group, in which we have taken an active stance in the development of downtown, which has led me to my interest in serving on the Planning and Zoning Board.
Well, thank you. Grateful again to have all 3 of you here. You're going to add a lot. Now, the first item on our agenda is going to be the consent agenda. You're going to need to give us some minutes to process a few things. As you see, there are blue cards. If any of you wish to speak today, I'm not sure where my prepared script is to read, but let me just tell you, if you wish to speak on any of the cases, there are the blue cards. Fill them out, send them forward, and then those cases will then be pulled off the consent agenda. Mr. Wesley is gathering them right now. So what are we taking off? Hold on a second. Let's get that. So 4A is off. Okay. And 4C off. 5B. Michelle, did you get that? Oh, you still got still 4C. 4C still on. Also has a lot of. Okay. That's it. Okay. Any others? Good. So the cards we have received, we have pulled the following cases off of our consent agenda, which will be the 4A, if you have a list of these, the 4C board members, 4F, and companion case 5B. Okay. So with that, Michelle, I'll let you read the consent agenda.
Item 4B is case Z16023 in District 5, 2400 to 2600 blocks of North Greenfield Road. approximately.
Excuse me, are we supposed to do the minutes?
Well, you know, I'm aware of that, but I'm going to tag that in before we
Oh,
vote.
okay, sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, I'm going to just go back and reread this one, 4B. Case Z16023 in District 5, the 2400 to 2600 blocks of North Greenfield Road. This is amending Ordinance 4839 in order to modify a condition of approval for the PEP zoning and to modify the project narrative associated with the zoning case Z08022. The staff recommendation is to table this item indefinitely. Item 4D is case Z16031 in District 3, 1919 West Main Street on approximately 5.65 acres. This is a council use permit to allow for a large format retail within the LI zoning district, and the staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 4E is case Z16032 in District 5, the 9700 block of East Brown Road and the 1100 block of North 98th Street. This is on approximately 2.3 acres, and it's a rezone from Maricopa County Rural 43 zoning to City of Mesa RS 43 zoning to establish City of Mesa zoning on recently annexed property. And the staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 5A is the Sunland Springs Village Unit 10 preliminary plat located at the 11,400 through 11,500 blocks of East Ocaso Avenue. The staff recommendation is approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wesley, before we vote on this, or I entertain a motion, do we need to approve the minutes first? Is there a protocol for that?
Just as part of the overall consent agenda, they can be read in to the record.
Okay, very
Part of
good.
that consent agenda approval. And then, because a little bit of confusion there, did you read 3A?
I didn't see 3A either. First one.
Oh, I did not.
Okay.
I can add that in now and then add the minutes at the same time.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Item 3A is case Z16029 in District 6, 5329 South Power Road on approximately 1.2 acres. This is a site plan review to allow for the development of a drive-through restaurant, and the staff recommendation is approval with conditions. And item 2A is approval of the minutes from the June 14th and June 15th study sessions and regular hearing.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please vote.
I motion that we approve.
Excuse me, why don't we do that? Why don't we?
I motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. Now, is there any discussion? Now let's vote. Okay, motion passes unanimously. So all of those that have come to discuss or see the outcome of the cases that were mentioned, you're now free to go. Okay.
Blue cards.
Yes. Let's see here. It's going to be 4A. Why don't you do that? Let's see, we're going to start with 4A. Okay. First case up for discussion is case Z16-017, District 2, 5850 through 5959 East Steel Circle. And John, I just do a blank. Do I begin with the applicant?
Usually go ahead and have.
Are we
Let
gonna-
staff give a little background. and
Would you
then
like to go ahead then? So in that case, we're going to turn the time over to
Mr. Spurgeon.
Mr. Sturgeon. Thank you.
Chair, board members, this is a request from A.T. Still University to modify the PAD that's on the property and also site plan review for a new 122,000 square foot academic building, also removing some of the surface parking west of Still Circle and replacing it with a parking garage on the east side of Still Circle. There's existing deficiencies in parking that are discussed in the staff report. The purpose of the PAD modifications is to allow the 54.5 foot tall height for the academic classroom building to provide greater parking than the minimum maximums set in our zoning ordinance, and also a reduction in the required bicycle parking. There was a visual impact analysis and some other graphics provided in your packets to help understand the look and feel of what's proposed here. We are aware there's been some concerns from the adjacent neighbors related to the garage primarily. Staff has proposed several conditions of approval with this case relative to the design of the garage. At the ground level of the garage, it's staff recommendation to include open barriers using ironwork or metal or something similar to that rather than solid concrete. This is something our Mesa Police SEPTED unit has requested to ensure there's adequate line of sight into the garage. You can see what activities are going on there. Mesa Police has also asked for an inspection of the garage before it's occupied, so that's also a condition of approval. And to soften the east elevation of the garage, staff's recommendation is a green screen type element using trellises and climbing vines or other similar elements to create a green screen. This item was taken to the design review board last week for a work session. They did provide some feedback, but want to see the case brought back to them. In so much today that this item is here before this board, you'll be looking at the requested modifications to the PAD and the site plan, which is really the scale and bulk of the development. And design review board, we're asking to really look at the skin and those fine-grained details. So that staff's recommendation is for approval with conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Spurgeon. Turn some time over to the applicant if wishes to speak. For all of those who will be coming to the stand, we ask that you announce your name and address.
Good afternoon. I'm Toby Rogers with Butler Design Group, the local design architect or executive architect for the project. This project is designed in conjunction with a Chicago architect that has been doing projects, university-type projects, including ASU, all over the country. We've been in process of about a year and a half now, programming, developing the needs of the university, and have reached a point where we feel like we've modified some of the garage elements to better address some of the concerns by the neighbors, that being changing the size of the garage, pushing it back from the road, and trying to address, I guess for lack of a better word, vehicle issues, noise, headlights, looking down into the neighbors and those type of things. One of the primary things that we've studied with the garage is to increase the amount of landscaping between Record Road and the garage. We don't have any drive aisles or any access for parking from the garage onto Record Road. So we think we've done everything we can to minimize the impact on the neighbors, but at the same time try to preserve the needs for growth and the overall master plan of the university. It's important to them that this parking be convenient to students, to the adjacent buildings, to the new building, and to the existing academic building. So we've really tried hard to minimize the impact of the garage while addressing the parking needs and counts. Any questions?
Okay. Any questions? Thank you. Okay, so now the public hearing portion is open for purposes of this case, and we'll be responding to the blue cards. I have 3 of them in front of me. Of the 3, 2 have not indicated whether they support or oppose the case. I have a Loretta Pace as one of them. Is she here? Are you in favor or opposed? You wish to speak. I'm aware of that.
With conditions, I am in favor.
Okay. And the other I have without a comment would be Russell Kennelly. And are you opposed or in support of the project?
Approval with conditions.
Okay. Okay, if you'd like to speak, yes, I would ask again that you give your name and your...
Sure thing. My name is
represent where
Russell
you're at.
Kennedy. I reside at 1831 South Record Road, which is a house in that community there. First thing I'd like to say is that I really have appreciated the cooperation and the helpfulness of the city staff in dealing with this issue. They've been outstanding to work with, and I couldn't have asked for any better. I am a resident of Mesa, born and raised here, been here my entire life. I plan on being here my entire life. I'm a second generation of Arizona, second generation of Mesa, third generation of Arizona. I plan on raising my kids here. I've appreciated the cooperation that we've had with AT Steel, our neighbors, and that's what we consider them. We feel that they've heard our concerns. We feel that they've heeded them. As Mr. Rogers stated, he identified our concerns adequately, and they have taken wonderful steps to try to alleviate those concerns and to make it an acceptable addition for our neighborhood. Our big concern is our community here is a long-term community. It is not to put a poor light on tract homes. It is not a tract home type community that has quick turnover. These are RS-43 lots and some agricultural modified sized lots. These have been in families for generations. I'm a second generation of this community. We have some here that are second and third generation of this community. We plan on being here a long time. I plan on raising my children in this community, and hopefully my children will raise their children in this community after I can no longer take care of the property. Our major concern is the effect of this garage on our overall community and our longevity of our community. The major concerns are, as Mr. Rogers identified, the sound, the element of potential crime, the element of light pollution and noise pollution, and the added traffic that it will bring to that area. They have made wonderful steps to alleviate those concerns, and we appreciate all the hard work and the time that they have taken and the care that they have taken in doing so. One of the last remaining items that we raise and would like to discuss and speak about and would like to see this included on any sort of approval is the actual wall and the barrier between Record Road on the east side of that parking garage. To be clear, we have no contention with the structure for the classroom that's being built. We understand the idea and the concept of the green screen, and theoretically we see it makes a lot of sense. The logical part of it doesn't really resonate with us. You're now talking about building planter boxes on every area. You're now talking about watering plants that would require a lot in a desert climate. You're talking about a lot of maintenance that may not be proactive for years and years and years to come. What we would like to see is some other sort of wall or partition or barrier, whether that be a curtain wall that's offset to allow ventilation, whether that be sealing it up and allowing a certain level of ventilation. We're concerned about people that can have a vantage point from that garage to look down into our area. We're concerned because we do have a rural area. We don't have a lot of lights on our own properties. We have had some crime element that has come in from the school, not the school's fault, and not students of the school, just the natural tendency when you have a facility like that they can come over. So that is our issues and our conditions that we'd like to see corrected on this. We do appreciate the landscaping that's put in. It is it's wonderful, and it looks like it's going to do well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kinley. Ms. Pace, did you wish to speak or not? No. Okay, again, for everyone's benefit, she has had mentioned that she is in support of conditions, and I assume they'd be similar to what we just heard. Is that correct? All right. We have one public member that wishes to speak in opposition to the case, and that is Brent Harbertson. Did I get that correct? Would you like to come forward?
No, I don't want to speak. I just.
You do not want to speak. You're right. I see it now.
I echo just what Mr. Kennedy had said.
So basically, you're in support with conditions.
That is correct.
Okay. May I change your card? Okay. All right. I'd like to turn some time back to the applicant, if you'd like to come forward and address some of these concerns.
Hi, I'm Charlie Henry. I'm with the Alter Group. We're the development partner that's been engaged by AT Still to facilitate the project. So, I guess just a general comment. We don't agree nor disagree with the green screen approach, and we understand the concerns about the barrier. And, quite frankly, over the last few months, we've had a number of productive meetings with the neighbors, or we felt like they were productive, and tried to respond to their needs. We did, as Mr. Rogers said earlier, reconfigure the garage to a more linear design, pulled it off the property line in response. And, we did meet with the police department. We understand their concerns. And, we think it's kind of a push and pull that, quite frankly, we don't have a preference either way. I think there is a balance between the concerns of the neighbors and the concerns of the police department and the aesthetic concerns. So, we're certainly willing to go whatever direction the consensus turns out to be. But, for lack of a better term, don't really have a dog in the hunt. We'll work either way. Some combination of those elements we think can probably work, and we're willing to be flexible, and as is the school. We've discussed it with the school, so we're willing to react however the board seems fit.
Before you leave, I appreciate that open-mindedness. So it sounds to me this idea of finding a compromised screen wall that would still allow ventilation and some level of protection, and kind of find that middle road solution sounds to be something that you're agreeable with. Is that correct? Whatever that looks like.
We concur. And, the design review committee had some comments that we're going to respond to as well. So our approach, coming into this meeting was, let's see how this process plays out, and then, get our group together and come up with some ideas, share them back with, with Andrew and the staff and with design review at the next meeting, and bring the neighbors into the loop and try to find some consensus.
Okay, thank you. Just a moment, please. Board members, do any of you have questions for Mr. Henry? I guess so. Thank you.
Go. Sounds like you've worked quite a bit on this, and a lot of things you've done a lot to satisfy the neighbors, and we really appreciate it. And AT still has been a great addition to Mesa. Really appreciate you being here, and we'd like to cooperate whatever we can to, to make your stay even more, fruitful. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess that is. Let's see, board members, do we have any questions for staff? Yes, go ahead, Michelle.
Mr. Wesley, so what do we do when we have a conflict between the police department concerns and design concerns and the zoning aspect, regulations?
Chair, Vice Chair Clement, or Vice Chair Dahlke, I think that with comments we already have from the Design Review Board to keep looking at that east side, that staff, the applicant, the neighbors can continue to look at ways to try to come to a compromise. The steps that apply to the particular situation, 8 and 9, are written generally enough. I think we can look to see if there are ways to increase the amount of screening that's going on while we're working with those aesthetic requirements, but still leave it open up for police.
So the way I would understand that is there is no need to make any modification to the case as read. There's enough discussions occurred that some reasonable compromise would be established. Is that?
I believe that's correct, and particularly in terms of the steps. We might hear from board members your opinion about whether you think generally we ought to have more screening or not. But it's really a technical issue that I think we can work out, or design issue that we can work out with the Design Review Board part of the process.
Thank you, Mr. Wesley. All right, board members, any?
I haven't really heard any concerns yet about necessarily the scale of it as it relates to the zoning and having this there, mainly just those other design-related elements. I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Jessica?
I had a question. One of the, Russell had come up and mentioned that one of the neighbors were talking about a wall along Wrecker. That's what I heard? And I'm looking at the exhibits, and I'm showing that there is in the renderings, there's a wall shown, and it says an existing 5-foot wall to remain. Is that, am I seeing this wrong, or?
Chair, Board Member Sarkissian, I believe I was a little bit confused at first the way he started to say that, but I think he really was talking about a wall on the garage, not the property line wall.
Okay.
But he can correct me if I was wrong. That was correct.
Is that okay? Absolutely. If you'd come forward.
Just as a matter of clarity, one of the reasons where yes, the wall I'm speaking of is a garage wall to more seal the garage from this side. Alter Group has been great to work with, and they have not been in opposition to sealing that wall. More than anything, my understanding was this was more of a city ordinance that would prevent the sealing of that wall, and that's why I was here, not in opposition of Alter Group's ideas. What was relayed to us is the lower level was more of a concern to the police to keep it open, and that's not a concern to us. We're more interested in the upper levels and the elevated locations. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other comments? If not, then I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Okay. I'll take
EZ
a
or Z16-017.
All right. I have a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Dane. Let's vote. All in favor? I guess we just... Maybe it will be
Aye.
a vote. All in favor, please.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our next case is Z16-
Chair, if I could, just real quick, just want to confirm that was approval with the conditions as stated in the staff report.
Yes, with conditions.
Okay, thank you. Moving on then, our next case, item 4C, 16-030, District 5, 5500 block of East McKellips Road, South Side. We'll first hear from... Okay, thank you so much. We'll first hear from staff on that and Mr. Ellsworth.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is a rezoning request for at the 5500 block of East McKellips Road. It's on the south side. This is located just east of Higley Road on that south side of McKellips as you go into the Alta Mesa community. This is a 4.5 acre parcel. It was rezoned approximately, this is back in 2007, from an office commercial use to a multifamily use for RM2. The proposal at that point was for townhome style development. The request before you today is a rezone from RM2 BIZ PAD to RSL 2.5 PAD to allow for a detached small lot residential community. The applicant's proposing 31 residential, detached single-family residential lots on the 4.5 acres. The access to the site will be primarily off of Alta Mesa Drive with a gated exit only onto McKellips Road to the north. The roads within the community will be private, however, it will be an ungated community for entrance. The lot itself is situated in a circular type format. It's open to McKellips Road with a screen wall towards McKellips. There's direct access to Alta Mesa Park to the south through an open space just as you enter the entry of the site. The previous approval on the site included improvements to that park in exchange for utilization of the park for retention and calculations into their open space areas. Concerns with the site as the applicant has worked with staff and with the neighbors have to deal with the western property line as it meets the Park Links community. The applicant has worked to, let me back up, minimum lot sizes in this are 42-foot wide lots with a minimum depth of 75-foot lots. Along that western edge for lots 1 through 5, they've increased that lot depth to 83 feet to help alleviate some of the concerns of the neighbors. The concerns really have to do with proximity of the homes, the height of the homes, and things that can be done to buffer those. What the applicant is proposing is an increased lot depth. They've included in the revised site plans that's received today an increased setback. The RSL 2.5 setback for the rear property line would be 15 feet to the livable. There is a request as part of the PAD to allow the patio to encroach to 10 feet. In order to try to alleviate some of those concerns and to mitigate some of those concerns along the edge, their request is to require a minimum setback of 21 feet to the livable and 15 feet to the 16 feet to the patio. This mimics what's going on in the Park Links community. The zoning on that property allows for a 20-foot setback to livable and 10 feet to the patio. This was pointed out by one of the neighbors after the study session on Tuesday. Not all those homes along that edge actually utilize that full setback. However, that is the entitlement on that property. So another modification that the applicant has made since Tuesday is that they have agreed to plant two trees in the back of each of those lots, along lots 1 through 5, to help create more of a buffer between that and those two-story homes. My understanding is that the applicant and the neighbors still have some concerns regarding height, and they have some other proposals that they have in play, or that they would like to present to you as far as other things that can mitigate these issues. But the way it stands today, staff is recommending approval with the conditions in the staff report.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a comment?
Those two trees, are they currently in the conditions of approval?
They're in the on the site plans. So the condition of approval 1 is approved conditioned upon the site plan and the exhibits. They're inside the exhibits. The exhibits were revised with a note. There's a note on the grading and drainage plan that would note that the applicant will be installing 2 trees in the backs of lots 1 through 5. So
okay, so that's part of the proposal now then, is that correct?
So you'd be approving it with those exhibits.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ellsworth. And now I'd like to hear from the applicant, unless there are any other questions for staff right now.
I just have a quick
ahead.
question. Within the documents available, is there an elevation plan so we can visualize
what this looks like?
Yeah.
Mr. Ellsworth?
You're looking for elevations of the actual homes.
Mm-hmm.
If you look in the packet, there are 3 files labeled product, and those are the three products that are being proposed, with 4 different elevation types for each.
All right. I guess before I move on, anybody else? Yes, Mr. Boyle?
When you're specifying 2 trees, is there like you're going to give certain heights, certain volumes, certain things like that? Is that part of it, or is that something that is
My understanding,
gallons specified?
Yeah, my understanding is the agreement is for 2 24-inch box trees of variety of that's in the landscape palette, which include, correct me if I'm wrong, southern elm, southern live oak, and evergreen elm. I knew there was an elm tree in there. So that variety. So those are 2 types of trees that flourish, that have a canopy that's practically year-round within our climate.
Okay, anybody else? All right, then thank you. We'll hear from the applicant.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Darren Lane. I'm with Mint Homes. I'll be one of the developing partners on the project. First off, I want to express the gratitude and appreciation for staff and planning for the time that they've shared with us through this process and worked through the numerous, at least, rezoning issues we've run into. I think through the 2 or 3, possibly 4 different versions that they've asked us to revise and revisit, they've made it better and better throughout this process. I think we have taken what was a nice product to start with and really create a little bit more connectivity to the park, created a better, safer environment for our neighborhood and future homeowners. So there's a lot of appreciation and gratitude towards them today. Give a little background on what we've kind of dug in and gone through with this project. We've met with the HOA, we've met with the board members of the Architecture Review Committee, and to date it's been received with open arms and excitement. A lot of the residents have shown up to those meetings, and I think there's a level of excitement to see the last final parcel of Alta Mesa finally completed and built out and occupied. There has been a certain level of opposition and concern with the 2 stories behind, and we've been sensitive to that throughout this process. Definitely, it's always nice to have that open view of Red Mountain behind, and we're sensitive to that, and we're doing what we can to minimize that and express our way of showing our understanding and sympathy is raising the course of the block wall height to the standard legal of 6 feet, implementing the 2 trees in the backyard 4 feet from the property line, and then just listening to them, really understanding where they're coming from, and if there's something else along the way that we can do to help them feel a little more comfortable about the transition, we're open to doing that as long as it's a mutual beneficial impact for both parties. And ultimately, we do feel strong this will be a great addition to Alta Mesa, which has been almost 2 decades of a thriving community. I think we're going to cap it off with a great new product that's been successful in other areas, and hopefully bring 31 new, young, vibrant families to the neighborhood. Appreciate your guys' time tonight and this afternoon, and hopefully if there's questions, we can figure them out and go forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a moment, if you wouldn't mind. I do have a question. I noticed just kind of preemptively that some of the homeowners have presented to us an alternative site plan.
Correct.
I'm assuming you had a chance to look at that. Did you want to comment on that before we turn it over to the public?
Absolutely. That was the original concept. I think that mirrors what is currently approved in the townhome attached product. And when we originally jumped on board with this project, we said, hey, let's just take what's approved and try to detach the product. Ultimately, what we found is to fit the 75-foot deep lot concept, as you got further west, there wasn't enough depth between McKelb's Road, the easements there, and then the park. We ultimately had a 63-foot pinch towards the outer edge, towards the western edge, and losing 3 to 5 lots depending on how it was laid out. I think we as Mint Homes, and I think a consumer would agree, it's a beautiful layout. It really would be great, but I think with the RSL density,
as proposed, not necessarily the alternative plan.
The alternative is a beautiful layout. There's nothing wrong with it. I think it's a very functional, but as far as buildability and construction-wise, we would be pinched to a point where the homes would be almost insufficient and unlivable. And so I don't want to say they haven't done a great job in drawing that, but I think after going through the engineering process with our engineers and laying out what is practical, it hasn't been feasible to make a 63-foot deep lot buildable with the current standards of building. But yes, we've reviewed it, we've analyzed it, and unfortunately, we've gone the direction that we're at in the case for them. But it is understood what they're looking for, and unfortunately, we just can't meet it.
Okay, thank you for that insight. Any questions? Yeah, hold on just a moment, please. Michelle, you had a question for the applicant?
Could you just elaborate a little bit more on the challenges with building? You said insufficiency. Just a little bit more detail what you're talking about.
So on a 63-foot lot depth and a 20-foot driveway, and you need a 15-foot behind your rear setback for backyard space to your livable, I think we would leave ourselves about a 13-foot kitchen section behind the garages. And so I don't know that with that and then the 30, what would it be, about a 32-foot wide product, it would just almost leave that downstairs more of walkways versus usable living space. And as we know, we're capped at 30 feet on our height, and 3 stories is out of the picture, and I think even more so on those lots. So I think just for downstairs practicality, we can't come up with a concept 12 feet deep that would really, I think in the end, validate a sellable home. I don't know if that answers your question at all. Yeah.
Your original plan called for, 32 home lots, and you have 30 right now. Is that correct?
Originally, we were at 37, and we've worked backwards to 31.
Wow. So you went from 37 to 31.
Correct.
All right.
Pretty big reduction. Any other comments? Questions? Thank you.
Okay.
We may call you back.
Okay.
If you would like to now hear from the public, we'll first hear from those in favor of the project, followed by those in opposition. Again, same thing. I have several cards here without a position on the case. Ann Belgian, I'm asking, you didn't mark, are you in favor of or opposed to?
Yes, in favor of the conditions.
Okay. Okay, wait a second. I'm not yet. So let's see. And then also I have one from Nora Childester. Chidester. Wow, thank you. Sorry. Imposed or support?
I'm opposed to it as it stands. I would like our alternate plan considered.
So, okay. Then if you don't mind, I'm going to mark support with condition, which is what I'm hearing from, or I'll just put opposed. What's your preference?
Support with conditions.
Okay. these ones, are they the same? C, okay, C, opposed. All right. I do not. Bear with me. I do not. Kind of new at this chair thing here, so. Okay, the following individuals, let me just read in their comments, have indicated that they do not want to speak. Actually, two of them, one is in support of with conditions. And then again, help me, let's see, it was Nora Chilster, and it was, again, she wants to see it changed. We asked that our alternate plan be considered. That was her comment. Then I have two that are opposed that wish not to speak, Todd and Maria Garber. And there are no comments on that card. And then I also have one from Jack Broman, who does not wish to speak. He's opposed as well, unless it's... okay, does that also the same situation for the Garbers? Are there?
Yes, it is.
So basically, it's all about...
We agree with the new...
Why don't they come on?
Well, they don't. They're asking not to speak.
Okay,
Apparently,
so
they want to speak. I think they're just...
You don't want to speak then, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
You asked me a question.
Yeah, I did. Okay. So what this means then is everyone's basically in support of the concept. It's just the site plan. Several are opposed to that, and we have heard or we're aware of that condition. So the ones that do wish to speak, let me give them a chance now again as you come forward. Provide your names and address, and ask that you allow about approximately 3 minutes for your comments. We'll begin with Ann Belgian.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm Ann Belgian. I'm the general manager of the Alta Mesa Golf Club. And I'm very excited about the 31 homes because hopefully I'll get 31 new members. However, the well that pumps the water for our golf course is located on an easement on the northwest corner of this property. My only concern is, and I don't even know if this is the right forum, but my only concern is to make sure that in the public record with the Arizona Department of Real Estate that it is noted of possible noise pollution from these pump motors that run at night. In the first plan that I saw before they did the revision, I feel with our golf course superintendent that units number 20 and 21 could possibly experience noise pollution. The course takes advantage of the SRP time of use plan, and we run those motors in the overnight areas. And we were even written up SRP year before last because we were able to save $57,000 a year by use of their time of use plan and running in off-peak hours. Obviously, off-peak hours is when everyone's sleeping. So I just didn't want it to come up later that people are complaining about pump motors and wanting us to cut off our pumps and pump during the day and whatever, so I just wanted it in some type of public report. On the new plan, I see that perhaps now it's not Unit 20 and 21, it's Unit 18 and 19. Those are the ones that are closest proximity to our actual well site. The only other thing noted that I've talked with Darren a lot about, that our only access to these pumps is going to be on the street where the homes are. Normally on a day we visit that pump 2 times daily. Sometimes it's just in a golf cart, sometimes in a pickup truck. Hopefully, knock on wood, we don't have any giant equipment back there, which means a pump malfunction. I've been at the club 6 years. We've only had that happen once. But again, I didn't know if this was the correct forum, but since it was an open forum, I at least wanted to say that I want to make sure that this is in the public record and the Arizona Department of Real Estate of possible noise pollution.
Okay, thank you about that.
Thank
So
you.
basically, this is a comment to protect your interest in the pumps, and I'm assuming there'll be disclosure. Got it.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Would that have to be in the conditions of approval or not?
No, I don't believe.
No?
No.
Okay, just
It has
wondered. Just
really
a
nothing
question.
to do with the proposed subdivision. Okay. Next up, I have Bill Kaiser. There's also some support. With no addition of comment, of conditions, unless that was your intent.
It is.
It is your intent.
Okay, my name is Bill Kaiser. I live at Park Links, 5445 East McKellips. We are immediately adjacent to the west of this new development. I am here for myself as well as the community. A couple of the other board members are here. I sent to you this afternoon, I don't know if you got a chance to see it, a hand-drawn revised and comments. Have you all seen this and had a chance to read it? It would have been this afternoon about 2 or 3 o'clock.
I don't know.
If you have not.
Did that go out? We received some information.
It came into that. It did bring a letter up. I'm not sure if it was yours or a different one that I brought up with the comment cards that was left there.
Is that?
And I'm not sure whose that is, but it might have not even been this item.
This is for the Garbers.
Okay. So it wasn't.
Okay.
Why don't you read that and ask questions?
No.
Mr. Wesley, do you have a picture of? Oh, he's handing it out. Okay.
In general, we continue to have an issue with the setback in the road. I know this was discussed or presented to you at the work meeting yesterday morning. We had some discussions with Darren after that meeting, resolved some things. He agreed to move the setback 8 feet, which is helpful for us. He agreed to raise the wall, which is helpful for us. He agreed to put the trees in the backyards of the homes that are immediately adjacent to us. That is also very helpful. And we appreciate that. We had about an hour's discussion with him in the back with one of your staff members here. I apologize, I don't remember your name. While we appreciate those things, we do continue to wish that the street be moved to where it is adjacent to the wall, providing an additional 35 feet of buffer space between our residence and the nearest home. These homes are somewhere in the vicinity of 27 feet tall. Having them 15 feet or even 21 feet off of our backyard is not the best. If they can be moved to 50-some feet back by putting the road there, it certainly makes it much more pleasant for us. One of the items that Darren brought up to me as we discussed this afterwards was that 2 of the lots would be short, would only be 70 feet deep instead of 75 if he were to agree to move this. We believe we have a solution to that. I've not had a chance to talk to Darren about it directly. I know in other developments that they do have some slightly smaller homes, an 1,800 square foot as opposed to 2,100 square feet that the homes that they're building there would fit on the 70-foot lot. Obviously, it would require your approval for those 2 lots to be substandard in length. The other thing that we observed as we replotted this was that there was the opportunity to add an additional lot across the park face, which should be of great benefit to the developer. It also adds a little bit of green space in the map as it shows. There's one big green space across the park. It's currently 65 feet across. The new layout would allow that to be 71 feet across. And if we would split it and move half of it to the western border and leave the other half there, that would also benefit both communities. It would provide the sanctuary people with 2 entrances into the park, and it would provide a tree buffer for the homes in our community that are immediately adjacent. So you have the presentation in front of you. Our map, sorry, we're not architects, but we do the best we can. any questions that you might have for me as a representative of the Park Links Group.
Any questions, board members? Not yet, but we might before it's over.
Okay. Yeah, we are thrilled to have this development go in. Don't get us wrong, we're not NIMBYs. We don't not like it. We've had a dirt spot over there for 20 years, and we would love to have it developed. We're just not particularly happy with the height of the buildings and not so much the height of them, their proximity to our residents that are along that border. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Next, I'd like to hear from Jaron Homer.
So my name is Jerem Homer. I have an office building in Mesa at 3514 North Power Road. I've also lived in Mesa most of my life. In fact, around the corner off of Val Vista and University. My brother lives in Alta Mesa now, and so we're very familiar with this neighborhood and community in this area. I've been working with Darren and also attending some of the meetings with the planners as far as going from all the different versions and iterations and trying to help identify all of the concerns. And from the very get-go with working with the planners, they've identified that there are some concerns that they would like to have addressed in relation to this site plan. In the original version, as Darren had mentioned, there were 37 lots, and we had kind of tried to meet some other considerations. And the planners identified they wanted to have more connectivity to a park. They wanted to have a more central influence of being drawn to that park amenity. I'm in support of this because I've lived in Mesa most of my life. It's been an empty piece of dirt most of my life. I like to see economic activity. I like to see people and families and individuals owning homes and purchasing homes. I've made a profession in real estate. My dad's been a developer in Mesa. It's a great thing to see new things and new blood and new activity come to communities and how it enhances and bolsters property values, brings new life to areas. I'm excited to be a part of this development. I'm not an owner. I'm not a principal in this endeavor. I've been working with Darren in conjunction with them. But I definitely am in support of the layout as it currently consists, as it's approved here, as it's submitted here, because after 3 different versions and 3 different times of reducing lots and trying to identify concerns, stepping the setbacks larger, as Bill had mentioned, there was a difference in the site, in the depth between the homes. They've got about, as it's built now, about 20 feet to the back of their home. As Darren has pushed the setbacks larger and made the backyards larger, there's about 21 feet, which would actually be staggered along those 5 lots, 2-foot offsets. So 3 of those 5 lots could be 23 feet. So at 43 feet, there's a pretty good distance between the homes, especially in a high-density zoning area between attached products and detached products, that we feel like we've tried to accommodate and tried to listen and identify their concerns and try to make as large of an open space as possible. Given all of those things and still having a community that has product and homes that appeal to what people are looking for and looking to buy, that we feel like the development as it's been submitted and presented is really something that would be a win for all of the parties, especially in adding trees and courses of fence block to add to the privacy between the 2 homes and the 2 communities there, all within Alta Mesa. I appreciate your time.
So are you saying you're in favor of the project as it's proposed?
I'm in favor of the project as it's proposed, especially after yesterday hearing their concerns and trying to take extra steps of raising the fence between the 2 properties, adding the trees for an added living green wall between the 2 properties, and also to identify in the plat that there is that deeper setback with that 2-foot offset. The reason for the 2 lines on that plat was because of that staggered offset, that it allows for greater space between the 2 developments to help for that privacy concerns.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Certainly.
All right, the applicant, if you'd like to come forward and address some of the concerns that were raised by the neighbors.
No, nothing I'd really like to address other than the, just the appreciation for the neighbors, and I understand where they're coming from, and I hope you understand that we've taken most measures we can to make this a neighborly situation. Again, I go back and we are open to anything going forward to make it an easy transition for them at this point. But I wish and hope it can be an equally beneficial transition for both of us. And then also just going along with what Jerem said, obviously I am in complete support of this proposed layout. A lot of sweat and effort and time has been put into this, not with just our staff or our group, but also I think planning and staff of Mesa as well. And there's a lot of appreciation and gratitude for what they've done. And I do know, and I feel strongly this will be a great asset to Mesa and the homeowners down the road. A lot of success with this product line in other communities, and I know it's a livable, usable, valuable home that we'll be producing. So thank you for the time.
Would you mind commenting directly to what Mr. Kaiser had to say in terms of alternatives to make this alternative plan work?
You know, I think going to the first point that he had brought up is taking half of the park and splitting it up. That was one of our submitted proposals that we had brought in. And I think that as we got with staff and planning, it was decided that a bigger one open park to the Mesa Park was more valuable and more impactful. So we have gone that route. We have looked at the splitting up of the parks and having two different access points. And I think as a joint effort, we feel that the submitted single access is more valuable to a community connectivity feature. As far as the revised layout that he's looking for on the shorter, reduced lot depths, it just goes back to the 20-foot driveways, X amount of feet of livable in front of those driveways, and then having a usable backyard. And I think the RSL 2.5 is well written at a 75-foot deep lot. I think you get much shallower than that, you have an unusable backyard, or at least a less usable backyard. And I feel strongly the 75-foot depth that we've gone ahead and written on 26 of these is going to be a very functional, usable backyard. And then we're going to have the added benefit of lots 1 through 5, which back to them having, in most cases, 23-foot backyards, which to my understanding, I think on an RS6 or R6 zoning is pretty standard for a 25-foot backyard. So I feel strongly with what we proposed. I don't disagree with what they've drawn. I think it's a nice concept, but in reality and practicality, it just isn't a functional layout for what we're proposing on product.
Basically, you're saying that it would have an economic impact on those 3 lots and the homes you could ultimately sell on them.
Absolutely, and it's more along the lines of 5 lots.
5. Okay.
And
I was also wondering. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Well, it's just going to be the 2 that are north-south that side up to them, as well as the ones in the center island that I think they've rendered on their drawing in front of you.
And you had the right to develop this with 37. You chose to lower it to 31 at this point. Is that correct?
I don't know that we had the right to. I think that was our initial
request.
Proposition. Yeah, and I think that what staff and planning had proposed and brought back as comments was beneficial to the community. And ultimately we lost lots, but I think we gained value in usable product. But yeah, 37 was the initial proposal.
Okay. Questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I can't remember. Was street parking allowed in this division?
It is. It's on both sides of the street, on the main entrance road, and then the furthest north road is only going to be on the residence side. We'll have staked signs of non-parking on the north side of the furthest north road.
So street parking was allowed. In the alternative plan, would street parking be allowed on that, or have you even looked at that?
No, even if you went to the non-parking narrower road, you'd still be at about a 65-foot deep lot. And so you would have non-parking, plus you'd have a 65-foot deep lot. So it would be a tough.
So parking would be a big problem then on the alternate.
Yeah. Which is the beauty of having the request to the 20-foot driveway, is we're going to minimize street parking by having usable driveways.
Yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah.
I really didn't think about yesterday, but I'm thinking about it now because I see a lot of subdivisions where they don't allow street parking, and it becomes a huge problem not only for that subdivision, but subdivisions around there. So
yeah, I agree.
Curious.
Okay, any other questions for Darren? Yes.
Do you know the houses to the west, are they a 15-foot setback too?
They're 10 to their patio and 20 to their livable, where we're going to be. Well, let me go back. The recorded plat, the approved plat is 10 to patio and 20 to livable.
Okay.
We're proposing 16 to patio, 21 to livable. But for the most part, they're going to be 23 foot to livable.
So, and I guess my bigger question is this: their backyards are next to each other, right, with a wall in between. Correct. This in the neighboring property, the houses are going to be about 30 feet apart. Is that
well, at a minimum,
like the back walls of the houses?
Back walls at a minimum will be 41 feet at a minimum.
Okay.
It should exceed that because I do think they have some of those houses are further back than the required 20 foot, more in the range of 25 feet. But I do think that ours as well are going to be closer to that 23 and 25, depending on the product that's put on that particular lot. So it's going to vary between 41 feet wall to wall and closer to 50 foot wall to wall.
As currently proposed.
As currently proposed, correct.
And so the alternative plan would just add another, what, 20
maybe 10, 20 feet
to that.
Yeah. And that's one thing I don't know that it's understood is even though the driveway's 20 feet, the livable isn't 20 feet behind our front setback. It's actually 8 feet behind our front setback, and then the garage is behind that. So it's a little bit of a misunderstanding on what the RSL allows and the way the design standards go, but it's understandable.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I do have one question. The block wall that's separating the properties, is that a 6 foot, I would assume?
Currently, it's 4'8" on one side, and it's 5'2" on the other. So we're going to add 2 more courses to make sure that on the southern side, we're going to add 2 courses of block to get to the 6 foot, 5'10". On the northern side, we're going to go with one course of block to get it to the 5'10".
And how about on the western end?
Well, this will be all along that western end. I'm sorry. So that western block wall, once we're done developing, it'll be 6 foot all the way across, correct. It currently stands about 4'10".
So you're increasing the height of that fence that is currently in place?
Correct.
And are there any residents who live in these particular spaces in the park links present here?
I believe so.
Yeah, there they are over there.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, board members, any comments on this case?
Okay,
Jessica,
I'll
go ahead.
start. I think that the applicant has given a lot here. I'm actually surprised. I've never seen a builder offer to put trees in your rear yard. I would like that. And then to do the increased setback, I think they've worked a lot there. I understand the alternative plan and what it is, what they're thinking of here and what they're looking at. Personally, I think you're going to have for the potential having that drive there along with the connection to the park and all that open space. I could see a lot of people parking there because it is a non-gated subdivision and using that as a pathway to the park. And you're going to get, and especially at night, you're going to get kids or whoever who wants to go to the park, and they would sit there and park along there. Nobody's looking at them. Nobody's fronting that street. Well, actually, there's 3 here fronting, but like you're going to have a lot more people, I would think, parking along that street and using that access who probably you don't want to be parking there. I know you have the larger access, which is proposed on the other side, closer to Alta Mesa Drive, and I think that's a really good. It's a really wide access, open space, a lot of visibility. You can see clearly into it. I think that's a better plan. So I am actually in favor of the way it is presented, and with the addition of the trees and the increased wall height and the increased setback.
Did you want a tree added to your backyard too?
I would like another sisu, please.
Thank you for that comment. Anybody else? Steve, are you going to say something?
No, I'm for it.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, I will entertain a motion.
With this motion, are we going to want to combine it with its companion case, I presume? Or is there a separate?
I don't recall if when you read in the companion case. You could do it read that into as one motion or just follow it up with a second motion afterward. The other thing I want to make sure is whoever makes a motion, if it is for approval, if you could be sure and reference the revised plan that was submitted.
Therefore, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll give it a try. Then I'll try. Mr. Chair, I'm going to move that we approve AM's investments application for their rezone from RM2-2-BIZ-PAD to RSL-2.5-PAD-PAD and the site plan review along with the approval conditions of approval.
Okay, this is case 16-30. What's this?
Again, if that could be the revised plans that were provided to.
And with the revised plan. Does that do it?
All right. A second?
I'll second.
I forgot. Thank you, Jessica. Any other discussion? If not, please vote. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, do we have any more blue cards? Michelle?
Can we do their, are we going to do their revised?
You know what? Let's go ahead and thank you. You're right. Thank you, Jessica. Let's go ahead and address the other motion that parallels with this. And this would be
PZ 16185.
185, yes. PZ, yes. Would I'll entertain a motion on that particular case then?
Okay, I move that we, Mr. Chair, I'm going to move that we also approve the associated case 16185 Sanctuary of Alta Mesa, along with the approval of conditions. Does that sound like about right?
Exhibits.
Just for clarification, that's item 11.5B on the agenda. Well, not 11, but item 5B.
11.5B?
Yeah, 5B.
Not 11,
5B.
sorry. That's.
And it would be the
the
plat as revised.
So you want me to restate that item 5B, approve of item 5B that was associated with the Alta Mesa case, which was, if I can find it here.
The plat
Maybe
name
the
Sanctuary of Alta Mesa.
16-30.
There it is. Case number Z16-030 in District 5.
Okay. How does our motion stand right now? Are we okay? He said yes. I guess we're good.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we are now looking. We will now discuss case Z16-033, District 1, the 406 North Val Vista Drive. And we'll turn some time over to staff. Mr. Stedman to speak.
Chair, members of the board. This request for property located at 406 North Val Vista Drive, approximately 2.21 acres, is a request for rezoning from RS9 to NC, which is Neighborhood Commercial and Site Plan Review. The request will allow for the development of a retail commercial center with outdoor dining. Existing development on the site is a residence on the hard corner. The rest of the site, moving behind this residence towards the west, is a vacant property. The request for neighborhood commercial will allow the existing building to be developed, repurposed as a bakery with a shop, outdoor dining, and then there are proposed future buildings that will front along University Drive towards the west. The applicant is also taking a companion case to the Board of Adjustment requesting a development incentive permit, asking for relief from some development standards that would allow the development of this bypassed parcel, and a special use permit that would allow for this outdoor dining in the NC district. Staff is in support of the applicant's request, and we have provided conditions of approval. The conditions 1 through 6 are all site development related and applied directly to the zoning and what happens on the site. But the applicant has been working with engineering and transportation for relief from requirements to dedicate right-of-way. Guess we're having a storm warning. Right. But and so the later conditions have all been worked out between the city attorney's office and the applicant. And the final condition is that they would execute a development agreement, and that's in the process, from what I understand. So staff is recommending approval with those conditions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, we'll turn some time over to the applicant. Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, always a pleasure to be in front of you. For your record, my name is Reese Anderson with the law firm of Pugh & Lake. My address is 1744 South Vista, number 217. I apologize. I thought I put my tie in my truck this morning, and I didn't. In the haste of the day, would you please forgive my state of undress? And hopefully we can move on. I welcome you new board members. I hope you have a great experience here on this board. Mr. Chairman, I know that there's one neighbor here that would like to speak and share some thoughts with you. And so let me just give very brief comments on what we're working on, and then I'll sit down and maybe I can just focus some of my thoughts on the concern from the neighbor, if that'd be okay with you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board.
Fine.
So I think we're up and ready to go on this PowerPoint. And just real quick, if it'll just show on your display, it looks like it's accurate on mine. And if not, I know the IT guys will come to my rescue.
Here it comes.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, that's what it looks like. That's right. There we go. So, for those of you who have not had the chance yet to partake of Heather Thomas's baking, I would recommend that you do. She has single-handedly added 2 inches to my waistline since I've known them. And they're here tonight. Randy and Heather Thomas are sitting right behind me, and they plan to open the bakery right on the corner. Also with me is Dave Johnson, the property owner, and Jeff Welker, who is working with us on this project. And it's interesting, isn't it? This house was built in the 1940s. It's all construction concrete. In fact, it has a solid concrete roof. And of the many calls I've gotten on this site, so many of them have been, Reese, are you guys going to tear down that house? What are you going to do with the big trees? And I've been very proud of Mr. Johnson and the Thomases saying, look, we know it's going to take more effort. We know it's going to take more money. But we want to keep that old house. We want to repurpose it, and we will do all we can to keep those trees. And I think that's been a very positive step here. I just find it ironic that the lady who lived there forever was always known as the bird lady because she sold parakeets. And here today we have Heather Thomas, whose company is that bread lady. Just a bit of ironic for us. This is the site here, and you can see the existing building, the large trees there on the hard corner. Many of you that have driven by it are very familiar with it. Beautiful site, beautiful trees. Has one of the few silk floss trees that gets that beautiful pink flower on it. Again, our request is to go from RS9 to NC. I think you have to ask yourselves, okay, what would I do with this site at zone RS9? Are we really going to put single-family detached homes on this site? The answer is no. Either you're going to have the prior applicant coming back with something in an RSL, or you're going to come back with like an RM2 type category and do a multifamily on here if you're going to do anything residential. And so that's a possible use. We talked a little bit about that. Some of our goals, again, create a unique neighborhood center here. We want to preserve as much of the existing home and the trees, and we want to balance all the development standards because our neighbors to the north. We want to recognize that and then balance those, and we think we've done a good job. Here's our site plan. I'm going to zoom in on it. Here's what's key about this and what you're going to hear is, and I think one of the points of contention, along the northern boundary line, we have proposed a 10-foot landscape setback, trees in there. Condition 5 in your staff report talks about landscape islands every 8 stalls. That's what code says. Here, I think the architect just spaced them a little bit off. The number of landscape islands still comes out to 4, maybe 5, because there's one section that might have 9 spaces in it. So it's not as if I'm really increasing the number of landscape islands, but what it does is it gives us a opportunity to put some of these diamonds in, to bring even more trees away. So what the neighbors' contention will be, hey, Reese, in the NC district, you need to have a 25-foot landscape setback. And here, because this site is so narrow, what we've done is we've worked hard to bring all the buildings to University Drive. They're as close as we can get. And then we've got parking, as you would see, it's very standard depths. I mean, if you think of a typical parking space of 20 feet, drive aisle 24, so you're at 64 feet. That's what it takes. So just doing the math, if you follow with me, board members, the site is about 160 feet deep. So from property line to property line, going south to north, 160 feet. The building and front setback on University, roughly speaking, you're at, I did the math. Yeah. You're at 15, and then at 65. Okay? And so you go north from there, I mean, you're at 15 and 63. Rounding up, you're really left with about 75 feet from that building to the north property line. Now, that's an interesting distance because when you look at this development standards in the NC district, in fact, in all the commercial districts, 75 feet is the same distance required for setbacks for a 3-story building. So one of the other questions was asked, hey, Reese, would you guys agree to just limit this to single story? And the answer to that is that we would prefer not to. And we feel pretty strong about it. One, this building's already at 20 feet. Our sign elements go up to about 30. But we've pulled them all the way as close as we can to University Drive. So again, you're looking at, it must be a real bad dust storm out there. We are looking at, I think, again, a balancing of interest on this parcel. And so our thoughts are, from a neighbor to the north perspective, looking over that wall, whether the landscape setback is 10 feet, 25 feet, it's a distinction without much of a difference because they just won't see it from where they're at. Instead, what I thought would be better is if we take those buildings and move them further away. And so as we looked at it and started to balance those interests, we thought we'd move it further away. The other reason that we're not excited about limiting ourselves to a single-story option or even a height restriction is because, again, these neighbors to the north of us have RS9 lots. They're allowed to go 30 feet. Most of those homes there are already 2 stories. Here, I just don't want to hamper this site. If there is a chance for someone along the way to say, you know what, this would be a really cool design to have this closer to the street. We have a little smaller footprint but go taller. I'd like to be able to have that option. I think as all of us talk about the new urban form, some of that detailing, I'd just like to preserve that flexibility, which I don't think would be detrimental to the neighbors to the north. Again, this is a very small site. You know, it's actually 159 feet. From my simple math, I rounded up to 160. You can see here, here's the current general plan. Has that mix on it of neighborhood. See RS9, we talked about that. And let me just, this is me playing sketch. I am not an architect. But this is illustrating how condition 5 would help address the concern about the landscape setback there. Again, landscape islands are spaced more appropriately, and then the red diamonds are added again. The trees would be put in those. I think all of us can envision that. And of course, that will materialize, not here today, but it'll materialize in the application for the Board of Adjustment. We'll have time to be able to modify it for there. And most importantly, it'll materialize when the construction permits come. Mr. Chairman, I've probably gone too long. I'm giving you too much detail, but I wanted you to have a full picture of what we're working on today. Are there any questions that you or other board members might have at this time? I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Board members?
I do.
Yes, Michelle, go ahead.
Mr. Anderson, do you already have tenants in mind or buyers in mind for the 2 retail buildings? And if so, what type of uses?
So, Vice Chair Dahlke, the question is, are there any tenants already? Are those 2 office buildings, are there any tenants for it? The answer to that is no. And to give a bit more background on that, this is a difficult corner to develop. And so making it through this first process will be critical to us. Are we actively marketing? Yes. But we don't have any users right now. What we thought would be best is to set the parameters now so that you could attract the type of users you would want here. And again, these are single-story office retail buildings. I think they would be great neighbors, right? They're during the working hours, gone on the weekends.
Just to follow up to staff then, but all of the improvements would be required in this first stage, the parking, everything, all the treatment along the frontage and everything, or is it considered to be phased, or have you discussed that?
Chair, Board Member Dahlke. The applicant has identified this as a phased project, and so the first phase would be the development of the bakery, and then each building would be its own phase.
Okay, anybody else? Is that good?
Yeah,
that take care of that?
I have one question. Maybe I missed it. If these buildings were 2-story, do you have the parking ratio?
Well, Board Member Duff, great question. The answer is no. Because right now, and I thank you for raising this issue, this site is really self-limiting. So as you see it today, parking is really at its limit. And so, you know, if suddenly I'm just going to pick the far west building there, and I threw a 2-story onto it, I absolutely would not have the ability to park that. What my thought is, there's just no reason to put this kind of hog tie on this site when it is possible that I could take both building 1 and combine it together and suddenly put some parking where the east building would be. Again, I'm not throwing that, I'm not proposing it. I'm just thinking down the line, and there's no real reason here to try and limit this when we would want that kind of architecture. And our neighbors to the north already have 2-story homes there.
Good question. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. We have one blue card on this case. This is Michael Badgett. I think you got that one right. You did not indicate whether you're in support of or opposed.
The third option, approved with conditions. Right.
Mr. Chair, if you could have him come up to the microphone.
I am going to do that, so yes. But I was just going to mark your card appropriately.
Do you mind if I close this? So he's laptop.
You're in favor with conditions that
Yeah.
you're going to share with us, correct? Mm-hmm. All right.
Ready?
Yes.
All right. So, in general,
If you'd excuse me, would you give us your name?
My
and your
name is
address?
Michael Badgett. I live at 3533 East Caballero Street, so I'm directly north of the property.
Okay.
I back up to what was formerly the Bird Lady. In general, I find the current site plan is actually pretty palatable. We've gone through a few iterations so far. The property owner and the applicant have been pretty easy to work with. The property in question, it is pretty odd. It requires some changes to be commercially viable, and I don't think that I should be on the hook to put up with the changes. I, as a private homeowner, I wasn't the person that purchased it, nor am I the one developing it. So that's kind of where I stand on that. The north side of the property, in order to be commercially viable, is in need of a setback variance. And I think the current block wall height is just not compatible with that. There are portions of that block wall that, if you're standing on the property facing north, appear to be quite high. I mean, even up to like 7.5 feet. there's an elevation change between where the Bird Lady property is to where the residences are. And so it does look a little deceiving, but for instance, from my backyard, the block wall is about 6 feet tall. If you go a little further west, there's a city well that is on the west side. The block wall there is, I want to say, close to 9 feet high, and it covers the well and goes the length of one home. So I think what I'm saying, my frustration that I have is I don't think that the setback variance combined with the height of the block wall is a good combination. I'm okay with the outdoor eating. I'm okay with the development. I actually think it would be a good thing for the neighborhood. I just think the combination of setback variance with block wall height is a problem. I like the trees. I like the park strips, but I mean they're only 10 feet wide. So I would be opposed if that problem didn't get cleared up.
And specifically, the problem in your eyes would be what?
The combination of a setback variance, which is associated with the development improvement.
So if they had the variance, so that wouldn't change anything. It'd just be the variance.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
So if they got the variance, that really wouldn't change anything. It's just they would have the variance, or
it would change how close those things can get to my back wall. Right. So right now, I mean, if you look at the site plan, there's a drawing of a dumpster within a few feet of my back wall. One bad dump, and I have a pool full of garbage, which is something that actually happened a few months ago when they were doing some work on the property, and so it's totally possible. I would love it if that it's the combination of moving all that stuff closer to the back wall. With the height of the back wall. I'm not opposed to rezoning it, but I would rezone it with the normal setback, which would make the property commercially difficult to work with, which makes me wonder why we're even talking about it. But
so basically keep it a permanent dirt park.
No, develop it in a way that keeps the setback the way that the city has decided to zone neighborhood commercial.
Okay, thank you so much for your comments. Mr. Anderson, did you want to respond?
I certainly appreciate Mr. Badgett's thoughts on this, and let me see if I can shed a little bit more light on it. I hope, is this on your screen again, board members? So let me draw your attention to the dumpster location. That's an easy one to address first. You can see they're on the south side of that driveway. Nope. I know the IT guys are running to my help again here, and I appreciate that.
Here it comes.
I didn't touch it. Just reset it. All right. I'm gonna learn that. I'm gonna learn how to fish one of these days. Let's get back down here to the site plan. If you look on the south side of this back parking drive aisle, you can see the location of the two dumpsters. Now, in an earlier iteration, which I can show you if you'd really like, the dumpsters were there on the north side. So now they're here on the south side. So I just want to hopefully mitigate Mr. Badge's concerns that a dumpster would end up in his pool. It certainly was not our intent, not our concern. We moved those to the south. So mathematically, they're now 50 feet away from a property line. Let me just jump forward here. Let me just show you a few pictures of the site, which will also help illustrate this wall issue, just to address it. Again, this is the house. You can see some of this modern architecture, which we're keeping and theming through the rest of the site. And then again, the big, old, mature trees. Here's the wall, again, standing about at the house, looking almost due west. And you can see here a lot of vines coming over the wall, etc. This again, now we're further about the middle of the site, looking back due east. Now you can start to zoom in on the wall. Pay close attention to the bottom there. What's happening is there's a large concrete footer, and then you've got the standard row of blocks above it. And you can see a lot of water leaching through there, which tells me that the folks on the other side have probably got great landscape backyards, and the water's just leaching through. Okay? Now, here, I put a human out there just to scale the fence. This is Mr. Welker, and he's about 6'3", 275 pounds, and his goal in life is to be known as a unit of measurement. So let's just call it a Welker. So here he is.
What is his dimensions again?
6'3". I'm embarrassed to tell you the weight, but he really wanted me to. Here's the point, board members. You can see there's a good 2+ blocks above him. Okay? So back to what you heard from staff in the study session. This wall's fully on their side. It's 6 foot from their side. From our side, it's about 8, which is what a commercial wall would be. So what they're asking us to do is to say, look, take down this wall, put up a new 8-foot wall, and those of you that have done that know that an 8-foot wall is completely different than a 6-foot wall. It's an engineered wall. So this entire section would have to come out. The footers would have to come out, and then it's rebuilt. And I am nervous about those landscape planners and the collateral damage that would happen to those folks. Even if they agreed, right, we would have to get 100% approval to do that along that entire length. So it's a huge, costly undertaking, one that we frankly and respectfully just think is not necessary in this instance. I think I answered his questions. Again, this is just a street view taken from Google Maps, just so you can get a thought of to say, hey, here's where the single story, here's the 2-story houses.
Mr. Anderson, I do have a question. What would,
yes, sir.
The other concern was the setback. If you were to do what he is asking, what would that allow you to actually do with the parcel?
Well, let's go back. Can I go back to the site plan?
Absolutely.
So I'm just going to stick with this one, even though it's got the red on it. So the strip there, if you just scale it there in your mind's eye, about 10 feet. Parking spaces are about 20. So suddenly if I'm coming 25 feet down, you can see now I've essentially wiped out an entire row of parking. And that, in turn, would probably wipe out one of those entire buildings. Now, Mr. Badgett makes a good point. Why should he have to bear the burden of this? Our respectful counterpoint to that is we're not asking him to bear any burden. Here, we think we've made it better. I would suggest to all of us that I would rather have a building 75 feet away from me than a building 25 feet away from me. So as we balance those things, let me bring the buildings further south, put parking there. You really won't know the difference because you won't be able, from your side of the wall, you're not going to be able to see even how wide that landscape strip is. I hope that answers the question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Answers mine. Board members, any questions for the applicant?
The other components of this case, again, are a development incentive permit in front of the Board of Adjustment. It does qualify as a bypassed parcel. It has been for decades, for more than half a century now. And so I would just respectfully request this is some of the balancing that goes on to be able to develop these parcels. This is why this one has sat for so long.
Well, I know this parcel is a challenge to develop, so I'm going to congratulate the developers for trying to do the best they can to do that. And I think I mentioned before that I drive by there almost on a daily basis, and I like to see something happen over there. And if we can help out whatever we can, you know, I think it'd be good. I don't want to put just anything out there, but I think what you have out there is going to be a good design, and I appreciate that. I really do.
Thank you, Board Member Ikeda.
Okay, Tim?
A 6-foot wall versus an 8-foot wall, is that a noise reduction thing? Is that a people climbing over the wall thing? What are the concerns typically that people have when wanting to say that? Or is that sort of when you have commercial against residential, you're supposed to have a higher wall? I don't know what the rules are there.
Mr. Chairman, Board Member Boyle, let me give you the best answer I can based on my conversations with Mr. Badgett, and if he wants to tell you differently, I would ask you to invite him back up. I think it's visual. As I chat with Mr. Badgett here, he makes the comment that he can see the bus shelter from his kitchen window. But you and I know, right, if we're doing development, that the finished floor of a house is typically 12 inches taller than what the grade is. So anytime you're in the house, you can see people, you can see a little further because you see over the top of that 6-foot wall. That's what he's expressed to me is, hey, I'll just be able to see more. But that line of sight saying I can see all the way to the sidewalk also tells me that he can't see 10 or 25 feet in front of him behind the wall. That'll be fully screened. Does that make sense? Did I explain that? I acknowledge that there were concerns early on about noise when we had a drive-through proposed as very early on. It's not part of the plan, as you can see today. So I think we've solved the concerns about noise. It's just visual now, which I think the trees will help tremendously.
Michelle, go ahead.
This might be a question to you and Mr. Badgett and to staff, but it seemed like Mr. Badgett was talking about the concern with the setback, that it wasn't necessary, wasn't justified, but we're not talking about the setback here. Is that correct? That's the Board of Adjustment will be doing that with the dip and the skip, right?
Yes, Board Member Dahlke, the dip through the Board of Adjustment will establish that reduction in setback.
So if the Board of Adjustment doesn't approve that, then what happens to the site plan? Is it?
The site plan is approved as designed, and yes, it's true, it does depend on that. So they would have to revise their site plan to make it work.
But my point was just that maybe Mr. Badgett then could come to the Board of Adjustment hearing to discuss the setback issue, because that would be the place to really, that is applicable. I just wanted to make the comment and make sure that I understood.
Chair, Vice Chair Dahlke, while the Board of Adjustment will technically be the one to approve that deviation in the code, they also look to what did this board set as kind of the policy and precedent and idea for what they would like to see here. And so if there is concern here on this board, it needs to be expressed. If you're supportive of the idea of the reduction, that gets communicated to them also. But they to officially approve it, but this kind of sets the policy.
Yes.
I just wanted to mention that I've seen several, I mean, these are throughout the valley, these little pieces that subdivisions could never acquire, or pieces that, just things that they're lone parcels. And I've seen a lot of them throughout the valley. And they always try to get commercial pieces. This one is just the bird lady's house. Other people have held out and just waited for the perfect price, never got it, and it sits vacant forever. And then every single one of them comes in and has the same issue because they're now next to residential. They no longer have the ability and the size and the site dimensions to make it work. And they continue to sit vacant and continue to sit vacant. And so I think by what you've done, by pushing everything forward, I think it helps immensely because you're going to have, the trees, the islands, the other trees. There's going to be more stuff in front, and everything on top of that buffers. The trees buffer the noise. Everything. It's just the cumulative effect of it. I think it's very helpful, and it makes the best of the situation. And I think it's in the end, no one will. A couple of years down the line, no one's going to say anything except for, I can go get my bread and my stuff over there and walk to wherever I work or something like that. So, that's
Thank
my
you.
opinion.
Okay. If there's any other discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, board members.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
I'll make a motion,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman. I recommend that we approve KZ 16033 at 406 North Val Vista Drive, a rezoning from RS9 to NC and a site plan review to allow for the development of a retail commercial center with the conditions of approval presented by staff.
Okay, thank you. Michelle,
I second that motion.
Thank you, Dane. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Well, that concludes all the cases on our agenda for today. If there isn't any other business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Steve. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michelle. In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. See you next month.